Flawedcast episode 243, Critical Intel, the Podesta Plan. We must prepare for an angrier world. Klaus Schwab, founder of the WEF.
Flawedcast, get in the arena.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all of our esteemed Flawedcast listeners. I want to welcome and thank everybody to a brand new, fun-filled, educational, and perhaps triggering episode of Flawedcast. I am riding solo. Mrs. Smith nor Tim could be here this week, and you're going to have to deal with me. But instead of waiting a week till everybody could be together, I really wanted to talk about the Podesta plan. Really wanted to get in because we're seeing things now that are happening just 2 to 3 days ago as I'm recording this that are now really affecting our nation in conjunction with the Charlie Kirk assassination, the World War III attempts that are going with Ukraine and Russia, that NATO that are being heightened. So it's important that we discuss these things in a very timely manner. So we're going to get into that. But before we do, once again, I want to welcome and thank everybody. Please subscribe. Please follow, asking you guys to share. You can find us anywhere podcasts are. Just search Flawedcast, CLE, Apple, Spotify, Breaker, Anchor.fm, anywhere podcasts are, Flawedcast, CLE. You can find us on the video platform Rumble. That is also under Flawed Inc. You can also find us on the Project Mockingbird social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Getter, Gab, Parler. We're now on Threads. All that is under Flawed Inc. In the description of this episode, you'll find a link to get a copy of my book, Smith's Heart of Man Repair Manual, and our email is flawedinc@gmail.com. Questions, comments, or concerns, please send anything and everything there. But let's get into this. So the Podesta plan, the two brothers, John and Tony Podesta, they're both vile, disgusting men. Let me share a little bit about John. So John David Podesta is an American political consultant who served as senior advisor to the president for international climate policy from 2024 to 2025, having previously served the senior advisor to the president for clean energy, innovative, and supplementation from 2022 to 2025. Podesta previously served as White House Chief of Staff to President Bill Clinton from 1998 to 2001 and counselor to President Barack Obama from 2014 to 2015. Before that, he served in the Clinton administration as the White House Staff Secretary from 1993 to 1995 and White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations from 1997 to 1998. Podesta is the former president and now chair and counselor of the Center for American Progress, a think tank in Washington, D.C., as well as visiting professor of law at Georgetown University Law Center, and was chairman of Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. Additionally, he is co-chair of the Obama transition team. And just to touch briefly on his brother, Tony, who he was a lobbyist. He co-founded the Podesta Group. He lobbied for such groups as the Bank of America, BP, in Egypt. He worked in the political campaigns for people such as Ted Kennedy, George McGovern, Michael Dukakis, and Bill Clinton. He was closely connected with the Barack Obama White House, served alongside his brother John and his wife Heather, and has repeatedly been named one of Washington's most powerful lobbyists and fundraisers. And you might remember these guys, mostly John, who was linked to the Pizzagate conspiracy, if you will, in 2016, where there was this Comet ping pong pizza located in Washington, D.C., and there were WikiLeaks that were discovered talking cryptic messages about a human trafficking, a pedophilic child sex trafficking ring. These guys are dastardly people, vile. They are tied to Marina Abramovich, who is a witch. They are very into this demonic, pedophilic, evil art. That's really how they kind of, in that world, came to prominence just because of their art collection, especially John Podesta. But these are really, really vile men. And we're going to get into the Podesta plan. But let me just share a couple things. First and foremost, I would encourage you to go back to one of our first episodes. It was episode number 8. I called it Mr. Alinsky's Playbook. And you're going to hear referenced heavily a book by a gentleman named Saul Alinsky, who wrote a book in the 1960s called Rules for Radicals. This gentleman was Hillary Clinton's mentor. He was an activist, just a horrible, horrible person. And the links to the Podesta plan and Rules for Radicals we're going to get into, but if you are not aware of Saul Alinsky, I encourage you to go back and read, because the modern progressive, the modern left's movement has much of Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals as the backbone, as the card in which these people continually play. But it's important we discuss the Podesta plan. This is the postmodern, this is the modernized version of Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. And if I have time, I'm going to go back and just kind of briefly revisit. But once again, episode number 8, I called it Mr. Alinsky's rule book. There's so much out of that. I apologize in advance because it was one of our first episodes. It was episode number 8. So it is going to be a little rough, but the information still stands, and the information is still as timely as it has ever been. But just a brief background of the Podesta plan. The Podesta plan or Podesta playbook is not a document you'll find published by Politico or archived in the Library of Congress. It is not a formal policy. It is not a white paper. It is a set of embedded strategies, well-worn, battle-tested, and deployed with quiet precision by the radical left. The phrase refers to political maneuvering, media manipulation, legal warfare, and social engineering tactics attributed to longtime Democratic insider John Podesta, a key power broker under President Clinton and Obama, and the campaign chair for Hillary Clinton in 2016 we discussed. These tactics largely revealed through WikiLeaks email dumps, campaign leaks, and public quote-unquote simulation exercises like the Transition Integrity Project offer a glimpse into how entrenched power operates, not through the Democratic consensus, but through manufactured crisis and controlled opposition. So when Anthony Weiner's emails were hacked, a lot of this stuff was uncovered in the WikiLeaks that were emails from John Podesta sent to various people, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, so on and so forth. And the playbook was largely dissected from those WikiLeaks. Let's go through these. Let's see if any of these ring a bell. Number 1, color revolution tactics. Let's start with what's being exposed in reverse. John Podesta and his co-conspirator cohorts imported tactics the CIA and State Department once used abroad to dismantle authoritarian regimes. The playbook borrows directly from color revolutions in Ukraine, Egypt, and elsewhere. Covert methods to destabilize governments by enacting unrest, delegitimizing elections, and undermining public trust. These tactics include orchestrating mass protests and violent flash mobs, delegitimizing the outcome of democratic elections, pitting ethnic and social groups against each other, coordinating propaganda through media and NGOs, non-governmental organizations. So these are not just foreign groups anymore. These are not just being employed overseas. These are tactics that are being deployed and have been deployed in the last 5 to 6 years. And I think that's very obvious as you start to look at what just these 4 different points are. Use your imagination. Think about pitting ethnic and social groups against one another. The whole Black Lives Matter cult that went out there, and there's now, the trans groups and the different things that we're having these ethnic and social clashes, just the beginning of them. They're starting to become more and more violent. The second thing, Transition Integrity Project. In 2020, Podesta took part in a highly suspicious simulation, the Transition Integrity Project, TIP, where he literally played the role of Joe Biden, refusing to concede a Trump victory. In that scenario, he suggests encouraging California, Oregon, and Washington to secede from the Union. He pushed for widespread unrest and legal challenges. The conclusion of TIP, violent conflict, is highly likely. The media called it just a simulation, but to many, it looked like a dress rehearsal for civil unrest, fueled by the very people who claimed Trump would never leave office. Remember, Trump did leave peacefully. So let's continue. Point 3, and once again, you're going to hear this guy's name a lot. Saul Alinsky's rules in action. John Podesta didn't invent these strategies. He inherited it. And if there's one ideological godfather behind it all, it's Saul Alinsky. Alinsky's rules for radicals teaches pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, polarize it. Ridicule is man's most potent weapon. The threat is usually more terrifying than the thing itself. Keep the pressure on. Podesta simply digitalized and institutionalized these ideas. He weaponized them through modern media, academia, NGOs, and big tech. Think about it. Ridiculing Trump supporters as deplorables, freezing ICE agents and painting them as villains, polarizing every national debate into good versus evil, oppressed versus oppressor. It's Alinsky's modernized, digitized, and turned into federal policy. And once again, if I have time, I'm going to go into these rules, but it's literally that. It's modernized and it's put into a social media forum. You know, it's interesting, before I go really any further, just to give you a glimpse of the kind of guy that Saul Alinsky was, if you read the book Rules for Radicals, which I have several times. Once again, you get to know the enemy's playbook. At the beginning, he dedicates the book to the angel Lucifer, who he calls the first radical known to man. He praises his Luciferic, his satanic father, where all of these manipulative, destructive things came to be. So once again, I'm trying to go fast. There's a lot of information I want to cover, but you need to look. Everything that's happening now is already planned. Number 4, media messaging and psychological ops. The Podesta playbook relies on a subservient, complicit media, not just to report stories, but to name narratives and suppress counterpoints. The process looks like this. Pre-scripted leaks are delivered to CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, Fox. I would say any of the 3-letter mainstream media networks. I don't trust any of them. Social media fact checkers throttle dissenting views. Snopes is a joke. Grassroots movements appear out of thin air, always armed with marching signs and talking points. Opposing voices are branded as misinformation or domestic extremism. The medium no longer informs, it performs as a propaganda arm of the regime, propped up by tech billionaires and beltway ideologues. And I certainly see, and I hope that as you're listening, you're starting to see everything has been crafted carefully, methodically, and intently on how to cause division, how to bring down a people group, how to bring down ultimately the U.S. One of the famous George Soros quotes is, "The main obstacle to a stable and just world order is the United States." And we've contended on this podcast for years. It's important to know political systems. It's important to know these things simply due to the fact that the Antichrist is soon being revealed, soon coming on the scene. He is setting up and will use and manipulate and move through governments and governmental systems. It's important that we have a working knowledge of these things so that we can begin to rail against them. We can begin to protest. We can begin to warn others. Just like in 2020, just like in 2019 when COVID was running rampant, literally killing people, literally destroying people's livelihoods. This is what we see as a result of that. Point number 5, legal warfare and bureaucratic occupation. Podesta and his network know that true control isn't just winning elections, it's owning the courts, the agencies, and the rule books. So this part of the playbook includes using strategic litigation to block executive orders and jam legal pipelines, stalling border enforcement and lawsuits while filing injunctions at friendly circuit courts, placing ideologically vetted appointees in every agency ready to resist or sabotage directives from above. This is not activism, it's institutional occupation. It has been stunningly effective. I mean, we can just see within the FBI how with the Epstein files, it was a poop show trying to get to the bottom of this stuff, and it still is. We see that they call them stay behind networks. These NGOs, these three-letter governmental organizations, have stay behind networks. People that are loyal to them, loyal to their cause, that will jam the system. They will cause as much interference as they possibly can, so that when these things are being brought into a court process to legally and lawfully deal with, it makes it impossible to conduct anything, to get any positive change done. Number 6, why it all matters right now. The so-called protests are coordinated, pre-staged, tactically armed. This is not grassroots outrage. It's color revolution tactics in full swing. ICE agents are under siege, federal authority is being challenged, and the narrative machine is already working overtime to call it mostly peaceful. Alinsky's methods are used to vilify, ridicule, and silence anyone who speaks out. Citizens are labeled extremists for wanting law and order. The end game basically is to collapse the current system and then replace it with an unelected, unaccountable managerial class. Use chaos as the excuse for permanent emergency measures. And if that sounds familiar, it should, because that's exactly what Zelensky in Ukraine has done. That guy should have been out of the office, but he's set himself up as dictator.
Oh, son of a bitch.
The same thing has happened with Benjamin Netanyahu. These guys have placed themselves in a quote-unquote democratic situation where they should have been voted out, and they are still in power. They are creating the Ukraine situation. I believe largely October 7th, the attack on Israel was pre-planned. I think it smells rotten, and I think that the leadership had a lot of information beforehand. But I think, and I hope, you're starting to see that guys like John Podesta, his brother Tony, have put together this playbook, this rule book, this plan, that when you follow it, it causes the destruction of society. And if you don't believe me, I really want to hit the Alinsky rules for radicals, but like I said, we had that other episode. There are 12 rules. Rule number 1 says power is not only what you have, but what the enemy thinks you have. Rule number 2, never go outside the expertise of your people. Rule number 3, whenever possible, go outside the expertise of the enemy. Rule number 4, make the enemy live up to its own rules. This one is devious. If the rule is that every letter gets a reply, send 30,000 letters. You could kill them with this because no one can possibly obey all of their own rules. This is a very serious rule. The besieged entity is very credible, and their reputation is at stake because of activists catch it lying or not living up to the comments. They can continue to chip away at the damage. Rule number 5, ridicule is man's most potent weapon. We already discussed that. Rule 6, a good tactic is one your people enjoy. 7, a tactic that drags on too long becomes a drag. 8, keep the pressure on, never let up. 9, the threat is usually more terrifying than the thing itself. 10, if you push a negative hard enough, it will push through and become a positive. 11, the price of a successful attack is a constructive alternative. And 12, pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. Some of those we've already discussed in that episode. I get further into detail of what these mean. Hopefully you guys can think and just put 2 and 2 together and see what they're coming up with. But as a result, we are seeing a more angrier world, like Klaus Schwab's comment I read earlier. We are seeing the deterioration of the American fabric. And I see that there are a handful of people in positions of power, I want to believe, doing the best they can to keep things together. However, the ultimate, I believe, destiny of America is to bow a knee and to succumb to these evil forces. I can't say it any better than George Soros did. The only thing stopping a global world order is the United States. In a more enlightened view, you can look at America as that city on a hill, that representative of the result of almost 250 years of the gospel being preached, of people being discipled, of people going out through the world and preaching and spreading the gospel of Christ. And we have been that city on a hill, but now that light, that city is being diminished. And these are the tactics that are being employed to do so. So just on Sunday and Monday, let me share a couple things that happened, and I'm just going to briefly read a couple articles. So in Michigan, a church shooting victims, this is from Fox, it says, Michigan church shooting victims accounted for, gunman named as Thomas Jacob Sanford. It says a Sunday service in Grand Blanc Township, Michigan turned into a nightmare when a gunman rammed his vehicle into a church. It was a LDS, Latter-day Saint church, Mormon church, said then set the building on fire and opened fire on congregants. At least 4 people have died. Multiple others were critically injured, and authorities are still investigating the attack. Police identified the suspected gunman as Thomas Jacob Sanford, 40, of Burton, Michigan, who drove a truck into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township, set it on fire, opened fire during the Sunday service. He is a former U.S. Marine and Iraqi war veteran. At least 4 people are dead, 7 are in stable condition, and 1 remains in critical condition. 2 were killed by gunfire. 2 others were killed after the fire. Police said Monday that all victims have been accounted for. The shooter, armed with what appeared to be a rifle, exchanged gunfire with officers and was killed at the scene. The FBI is leading the case with ATF, state and local authorities, assisting leaders of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, called the violence tragic, urging prayer, peace, and support for victims and family. So over the weekend on Saturday, we see a similar tragic event. It says here from CBS News, 3 dead, at least 5 injured in shooting at North Carolina waterfront bar, authorities say. 3 people were killed and at least 5 more suffered injuries in a mass shooting in Southport, North Carolina on Saturday night, authorities say. Authorities quickly arrested a person of interest, Nigel Max Edge, a resident of the nearby town of Oak Island, according to police in the town in Southport. At a news conference Sunday morning, Southport Police Chief Todd Corney said their investigation so far suggests the shooting was highly premeditated. So some more information about the alleged shooter, and this is from Fox News. It says, according to a lawsuit, Nigel Max Edge, formerly known as Sean Dubois, had previously served in the United States Marine Corps and had been shot in the head during an ambush in May of 2006 while overseas. Records say that Edge was meant to be wheelchair bound for the rest of his life. So on the same day this last weekend, so once again on Sunday, this is a local news story. Painesville Township man shot dogs before turning gun on himself in SWAT standoff, says Sheriff's Office. Action 19 News, WOIO. Painesville Township man shot 2 dogs, 1 fatally, during a family dispute before barricading in the home, prompting a SWAT standoff and turning the gun on himself on Sunday, the Lake County Sheriff Office confirmed. Lake County Sheriff Office Chief Deputy Robert Izzo said deputies were sent to Coventry Drive in Painesville Township for a report of shots fired inside a home at approximately 5:47 p.m. on Sunday, September 28th. The initial report indicated an argument with a family member led to a man firing multiple rounds, shooting 2 dogs inside the home, and according to Izzo, deputies on the scene determined the only family member who was with the suspect during the shooting was able to escape the home unarmed and with one of the injured dogs, Izzo stated. And these are all horrible, tragic events. My heart goes out to all of the victims, and I'm hopeful and I'm prayerful that these people that were taken away knew the Lord, especially the Mormons. I hope that Jesus revealed himself to them in a real sovereign way. But I want to bring in a Bible verse, and I just want it to contemplate as a listener. This is Matthew 24, verse 12, and it talked about this a lot. It says, "And the love of the great body of people will grow cold because of the multiplied lawlessness and iniquity." That's from the Amplified. And it says here in the NIV, "Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold." And it goes back to that Klaus Schwab quote. They are creating a angrier world. I pray and I hope I did a good job in laying out this Podesta plan, the playbook. And I hope you can see, whether it be the issue with Charlie Kirk, whether it be the girl that was stabbed on the New York subway, the Ukrainian refugee, whether it be now that there was an ICE facility even on last Friday that was shot at. In Dallas, Texas, there several ICE agents were shot. A couple foreigners, people who were here illegally, were also shot. We're now seeing an increase of that, and it was all planned and laid out in the Podesta playbook and the rules for radicals. And we can see the cooperation with these NGOs, with media. When you call somebody Hitler and you call a group of people Nazis who happen to disagree with your political ideology, eventually that stuff sinks in, seeds are planted, and it grows roots. And we're now seeing that. We're also seeing that Jesus himself warned in Matthew 24 that because the increase of wickedness, because sin abounds, the love of most will grow cold. And my prayer is that we will begin to wake up and discern these things that are not of the Father, that we'll discern these things that are not of Christ, and we will have not just spiritual understanding, spiritual revelation, we will have knowledge, and we will have logic and the weapons of understanding the enemy's playbook, that when they start to use them, we could recognize it and we could call it out. We could begin to pray. And, I've been real disheartened lately, even more so than usual. The lack of leadership in the body of Christ, seeing how there's so many sheep in the pulpits instead of lions. And there's a real time for people to really start to be bold, to really start to call out these things like, hey, these things, the shooting of this church, and I've called in the past, like there's going to be synagogues shot, there's going to be black churches shot at, there's going to be black colleges bomb threatened, and we're even starting to see that now. Just days after Charlie Kirk, there were several black colleges that were shut down, and we're seeing that through the Podesta plan, inspired by Alinsky's rules for radicals, that this is all planned out, this is all plotted out. We need to be aware of these things. And I'm going to close, but I'm going to close and pray for discernment and pray for God to open the eyes of our hearts. So, Father, I just thank you for this opportunity. I pray I was able to discuss and to unfold these evil plans so that the people listening will take to heart. They will have a hunger and a desire to understand the ruse, the deceptions of the devil, and they will be able to understand that you, Lord, are the way, the truth, and the life, that no one comes to the Father except for you, that as the world grows in wickedness and lawlessness and grows cold in love, that we will abound in love. We will abound in you. And Father, I just pray right now for those listening, you put a hedge of protection. I pray for discernment. I pray for increased discernment and for alertness of what evil days we are living in and how to adhere to you, how to cling to you. And Lord, I pray that everyone listening would do that in a greater capacity. I pray everyone listening will be more bold. They'll be more ready to give an account for the faith that they believe. And I just bless them for listening, Father. And I ask that you keep everyone in the palm of your hand. Keep us all safe. In Jesus' name, amen. So I hope this made sense. I always feel weird when I'm by myself, just trying to deliver this, because I feel like the counterpoints and the hearing my wife talk about things, hearing Tim talk about things adds more, and it helps people understand. So I hope that this was that kind of episode. And I just pray that you were blessed, that you learned something you didn't know before, and that it will intrigue you. It will provoke you to begin to learn and to begin to prepare yourself for the spiritual war that we're fighting. And I just want to encourage you guys, please share. This is just critical intel. This is like the name of the episode. This is vital information that we need to be made aware of. So please share. Please subscribe. Please follow. You can find our podcast, Flawedcast CLE, anywhere podcasts are. Just search Flawedcast CLE, Apple, Spotify, Breaker, Anchor.fm. You can find us on the video platform Rumble. That's under Flawed Inc. You can find us on the Project Mockingbird social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Getter, Gab, Parler, and we are now on Threads. In the description of this episode, there is a link to get a copy of my book, Smith's Heart of Man Repair Manual, and our email is flawedinccle@gmail.com. Questions, comments, or concerns, send them there. We will see you guys next week, and until then, stay safe and stay prayed up.